Greetings, one and all, and welcome to the Spirit Side Podcast. I'm your host, Paul James Caden, and boy, do we have a lot to talk about in this episode. There is so much happening in the world right now that it really is almost unbelievable. To look at the headlines, to look at some of the articles that are coming out in science magazines. The earth is going through so many changes and so many bizarre things are happening. And quite frankly, a lot of people are worried. They're worried about their health, their future, the health and future of their loved ones. We have a lot of folks in the religious organizations saying that we're living in the last days. The end is nigh, sort of thing. And, I'm no stranger to that. I'm on social media as well. I look at the headlines. I look at articles on the internet, and it's everywhere. A lot of people are saying, the last days, this is it. Prepare yourself. And, that too can scare a lot of people because they just don't know what the heck is going on. It seems like the world is just falling apart around them in a lot of different ways. I mean, we have things like climate change. And, there are some people who say, well, that's a hoax. It's man-made. It's a false narrative. And, ladies and gentlemen, it's not something that I've ever touched upon in a podcast because it's one of those things, that global warming and climate change is real or it's not real. It's a hoax. It's man-made. It's a narrative that's part of an agenda. But I want to say this, no matter what else it might be, there's definitely some truth to the problem of climate change. And you have to think about it. The amount of garbage that we dump into the atmosphere, the skies, the oceans, the land, we're polluting the planet. And it's having an effect. It certainly is damaging our atmosphere. It's polluting our air. We're ravaging the world's forests. I mean, even rainforest where there's, rare or endangered species, and we just go in there and level these places for profit. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to remember that trees breathe in carbon dioxide and they make oxygen. So the less trees we have on the planet, the more we keep destroying plant life and trees and forests, the worse it's going to be for our environment. And it is. Why do you think sometimes you see people or entire countries coming up with this idea that they're going to plant so many millions of trees in the next year? Because they know that trees, plants, purify the air. They're good for the environment. But for some reason, human beings, in their greed and their ignorance, just continue to ravage the planet and cut down miles and miles and acres of forest every day, every year. Like it's not going to have an impact on the planet. And now here's one, ladies and gentlemen, that we don't hear a lot of people talk about, but it's true. Particularly those who are eyeball deep in the conspiracy, climate change and global warming, it's all a hoax, it's all man-made. Well, does anybody actually research what is happening to our planet. Now, this was in the headlines. It was in the news. It's not a hoax. This is real deal stuff, folks, that our planet is being bombarded by radiation from space, cosmic rays, some of it from the sun. I mean, there's some of it that's hitting us that scientists really don't know where it's coming from. They speculate, is it coming from distant stars that have exploded, some kind of, cataclysmic event in the universe, and that radiation, that those cosmic rays are now just reaching us. But our planet has been being bombarded by these things for a while now. And they're damaging our atmosphere. And a lot of them are getting through because our atmosphere is already damaged and being damaged even more. And when those rays hit the earth, they're absorbed by the earth. And it heats up the core of the earth. And sooner or later, the planet has to release some of that heat that this radiation is causing. And so what happens? Earthquakes, volcanic activity, the fissures, the sinkholes that open up. I mean, all these things. It could even affect the weather patterns of our planet, which we're seeing. With the core of the earth heating up from this radiation, these cosmic rays that are bombarding the earth, it's also causing the heating up of the ocean waters. And so we're seeing a lot of these mass die-offs. It's not good for the marine life. It's causing the ice and the polar caps to melt. So all these problems are happening for a reason, and that's not the only reason, but it's a pretty big reason with these cosmic rays that are just bombarding us. And then, of course, there's the crazy weather patterns that are out there. There's flooding, there's drought. There's been crazy winter storms hitting parts of the United States this winter, just crazy winter storms. And then you look at places like Australia. For the last 2 or 3 years, these poor people, every summer seems to be hotter and hotter, breaking records. I mean, these people they're baking over there, and then they have the forest fires. The wildfires that are just burning out of control. I mean, this is pretty scary stuff. And then since 2019, and we just had one a couple days ago here in 2020. I think it was the January 24th or 25th, 2020. These locust swarms, like the biblical plague. I know that they were in Saudi Arabia. There was one in Las Vegas. Now there's one in East Africa. There's been these massive locust swarms in other places. And we haven't seen things like this in years. I mean, you might hear the occasional locust swarm, but we've had so many just in the last, I'd say 4 or 5 months or less, all over the world. And people are saying, oh man, is this one of the biblical plagues. Are we living in the last days? What is going on with all of these locust swarms? And then, of course, we have in the news recently, it's flu season here in the United States. And I'm sure other places, it's flu outbreaks everywhere. We have flu type A and flu type B this flu season. And a lot of people seem to be getting flu type B, which from what I understand is really nasty. It's like the stomach virus that causes you're going to the bathroom, you're throwing up, you have all those wonderful symptoms, plus the other flu symptoms and the 102, 103 degree temperature. So that's, again, people are worried, and people are worried about this coronavirus. It started in China. Now there are cases in Canada and Europe. I mean, it's picking up steam all over the world. And I just read a headline this morning that said that the death toll in China, had risen due to the coronavirus. And this thing is untreatable. Our medications that we have right now, the antibiotics, antivirals, I guess nothing works to stop it, to weaken it. And so that's quite scary when you get a virus that causes pneumonia, all kind of upper respiratory problems, and there's no medical treatment. But then there's a friend of mine on YouTube who he doesn't really do a whole lot of videos about this kind of thing. He's mostly a very outdoorsy kind of guy. But he was asking the question, what is it about the coronavirus that we don't know? Because he was showing a clip of medical professionals. These were nurses in a hospital in China, literally so afraid of this virus, they were crying. They were breaking down on camera on the news, hoping that they were well enough protected that they didn't get it. And they were absolutely terrified because so many people were coming in to the hospital with this virus. So what is it about it that we don't know, that we're not hearing through the media? Why are trained medical professionals, nurses, breaking down in tears over this because they're so afraid on a news interview? And then they were building in China somewhere a 1,000-bed facility that they were hoping to construct within some crazy amount of time, like 10 days, because so many people were coming down with this virus, and they were expecting even more, that the hospitals weren't going to be able to hold all of the people that they were expecting to be sick with this thing. So, folks, that's some pretty creepy stuff when you think about it. And this, these are just kind of tip of the iceberg things that are happening right now in the news. There's a lot more that's going on with our environment, with the oceans warming, the marine life dying. It seems like the environment is going crazy. People are going crazy. The governments are going crazy. The world of, sickness and disease is going crazy because it's so widespread, and there's new strange viruses all the time. Why, just here in my area, in upstate New York, there was a report just around a couple of weeks before Christmas that there was a mysterious flu-like virus that was breaking out and people in Pennsylvania were catching it. And they didn't know what it was. And you hear about these mysterious viruses that nobody really knows what they are, where they're coming from, all the time. And some people say, hey, they're man-made. This is what the elites are trying to perfect the next pandemic or the next plague to cut down on the mass population, and maybe so. That may be so, because unfortunately, when it comes to the crazy elitists and their global domination plans, and not thinking so very highly of the little guy and gal like you and me, they got some pretty creepy stuff that's been on the table about how they're going to cut down the population, make it more manageable, make it more easy to rule as they build their little empire or their little utopia in the world. So, as crazy as it sounds, some folks might have a point when it comes to some of these viruses that pop up. I was visiting my doctor just around, a couple of weeks before Christmas. It was just a routine checkup type of thing. And I was talking to an elderly lady in the waiting room. And she had just come back from Pennsylvania, and her grandson had this mysterious virus, and she had it. So you can bet your bottom dollar. When I heard that, man, I got one of those little protective surgical masks from the front desk, and I slapped that thing on my face quicker than you could say, Jiminy Cricket, because I didn't want to, contract the mysterious virus that nobody knows what the hell it is. So, like I said, that this is just tip of the iceberg. There's so many crazy things that happen almost daily, weekly, monthly. But if you've listened to this show for any amount of time and you know anything about me, I'm not going to come on here and start sounding the panic alarm. And that's not what I'm going to do here. My thought is to say, yes, these things are happening. Is it the end of the age? Is it the last days? Is it something that will change and, we'll get life back on track? Time will tell. I don't think we can give in to all the panic that we see all around us and on the internet. People just, kind of going hog wild with the fear and, the 3 alarm fires, it's the end, we're all going to die type of thing. But rather for me, I wanted to do this show today and, of course, talk about these things because they are happening. But how can you and I respond to what's going on around us? Should we give in to all of the fear and drama and anxiety and stress with everyone else? Or is there a different way to look at this? My thought on it is this. There is a school of thought in Buddhist philosophy, particularly when it comes to practicing, Zen Buddhism. And that is cultivating the state of mind where you accept life and meet life on its own terms. In other words, you don't run and hide from life. We do it here, particularly in the Western states and in America, we tend to not think about our own mortality or that things could go wrong. We never want to talk about things such as death or calamity or, God forbid, even, the economy. What if I lose my job? What if I lose my home? What if I lose everything? We tend to think or have this notion in the West that if we have the right religion, if we're on the right diet, whatever that might happen to be this week, this month, or this year that's popular, if we go to the gym 5, 6, 7 days a week, if we're in good enough shape, if we take the right vitamins and the right pills and the right supplements that the nutrition gurus tell us to take, well, by God, we'll almost live forever. We can keep our youth. We can stave off death. We can live for many, 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 many years. And we have this notion that we're almost immortal. Like it's never going to happen because we hide. We hide from life. We don't like to think about the scary things or the bad things. And then when they do happen, there's mass panic. People start freaking out. People start yelling and screaming. People start, why did this happen? Why did this happen to me? Why did this happen to my loved one? They're shaking their fist at the heavens. I hate you, God. I'll never believe in you again. Why did you do this to me or my loved one? And it's a complete and total meltdown and just sorrow and fear. Because we hide from life. But in Buddhism, you open to life. You don't hide from it. You become well aware that one day you're going to die. Your loved ones are going to die. Bad things could happen. You could get old. Catastrophes could happen in the environment and in the world. You're open to your emotions. There are times you're going to feel happy and joyful, and then times you might feel afraid or sad or anxious. But you don't belittle yourself for feeling those things like we do in the Western states. Like, oh, that's cowardly. Oh, we could never be afraid. We could never be sad. Just like we never want to think about our own mortality or the mortality of our loved ones. But in Buddhism, it's opening up and accepting all of that. I'm not going to be here forever. My loved ones aren't going to be here forever. Life on planet Earth probably isn't going to be here forever. Things are going to happen. Things are going to change, especially in this material universe, this material world that we currently exist in. Things are going to break down. Things are going to decay. There are going to be things like illness, pandemics, earthquakes, food shortages, whatever may happen. You're open to life and not hiding from it. And the main thing is that you focus on the present moment, living right now, here, today, and being grateful for this moment. You're not living in the past, and you're not projecting and worrying so much about the future. Each day will take care of itself. There's the old Buddhist saying. It's like a proverb. It says, each day you get up, you clean your home, you plow the field, you milk the cows, you prepare your meals. But then what if something terrible were to happen? What if you were to be diagnosed with an illness, or one of your loved ones should pass away, or something bad should happen in the environment or the economy or whatever constitutes something bad happening? What then? Well, you get up, you clean your home, you plow the field, you milk the cows, you prepare your meals. Life goes on. Because you're aware, you know, you're open to things are going to happen. To you, to your loved ones, to the world around you. It doesn't mean you don't feel sorrow. It doesn't mean at times you don't feel afraid. But you concentrate on the moment. You get up, you take care of business, you live your life, you go through your day, and you focus on the precious here and now. You don't fear what's happening or what's going to happen or what might happen. And see, that's the big difference between that mindset and the mindset of everybody just living under this illusion or delusion that, oh, the government's going to take care of everything, or the military's going to take care of everything, or the latest diet or supplement's going to take care of everything, or whatever the case may be. The world and my life is going to go on forever and nothing bad's ever going to happen. It can't possibly happen here. And then when it does, or there's a threat that it might, everybody falls apart. I guess in a nutshell, you could sum it up with the modern day phrase of, you can't change what other people do or what happens in your environment. Can't change that. Many times we can't. But you can change how you react to it. In the Buddhist philosophy, one of the things they also do is meditate and contemplate impermanence. Nothing is here forever. Not you, not me, not our family, not our home, not the trees. Everything eventually is going to die, decay, change. But that's okay. Because we're not going to be here forever, but then we take the next step into the great mystery with whatever comes next. It's part of the natural cycle of life. Death, the journey after death, whatever that may entail. And some Buddhists believe that there's something that comes next, and others believe that there's not. It's like anybody else. One thing I like about Buddhism, as I heard a monk say once in a book that I had written, he said, you know, be your own psychologist. You know, really open yourself to life and examine things you're afraid of. Ask yourself why you're afraid of them. So see, folks, this isn't a religious discourse in this podcast. This is about giving you tools to cope better with what happens in the environment, what happens in the world. And I'll tell you, one of the things in taking that advice to be my own psychologist that really helped me was meditating impermanence. Because I'm 99.9% sure that when I die, when all of us die, there's something that comes next. But what if there's that 1%? What if I'm wrong? What if all of us who believe in that are somehow wrong? And when I was an evangelical fundamentalist Christian, that thought used to scare the crap out of me. It can't be wrong. Oh my God, no, there's no way that I could die and cease to be. But see, being my own psychologist, opening up at least to the possibility Even if I'm 99.9% sure that there's something after life, after this life, what if by that little fraction I was wrong? And by meditating and contemplating that over the years, I've made peace with that. If by that fraction of a percentage that I am wrong, I'm okay. Because I've opened myself to life. I've opened myself to the possibility. Whatever the natural course of life and death is, whatever the universal plan of my life, every life, a single life happens to be, I trust that plan. I trust that cycle, whatever it is. Even if it were to be the void, nothing. And that took some doing. But there was a change for me, a change in me about that possibility. And I no longer think about it and go, oh my God. Oh God, I hope not. Now I look at it and say, if that's what it is, then that's what it is. Again, it's not something that I can change, but it's something I can change the way that I respond to or the way I think about it. And that's something we can all do to take the fear and the panic and the angst out of all this that's going on in our world. It's just kind of opening to life. Stuff's going to happen, man. You know, as much as we'd like to believe it, we don't always live in a fairy tale world. And that's just reality. And as far as all this being the last days goes, you know, we could talk about that. I've talked about that in podcasts past. But I want to look at another angle of this as well. Also from the Buddhist philosophy. And they teach that everything that happens in our world, everything that happens in our environment is because of our state of consciousness, our state of mind. It gets projected into the way we act, the way the world reacts around us. And if you really think about it, and that's something that I've always believed, even before I knew anything about this or Buddhist philosophy, because I've always noticed, and if you really think about it and you really take notice of this as well, it seems like the disasters and the problems and the famines and the diseases and the weird diseases and the new diseases and all these things that happen seem to go hand in hand when mankind upon the earth is really kind of going off the rails in the way he thinks, the way he behaves, the way he treats the environment, and especially the way he views and treats one another. When he's all about prejudice and war and greed and just all that stuff, that junk, it seems the environment responds in kind and everything just starts going haywire. And Buddhists say, hey, change your thinking, change your state of consciousness, change your world, change your environment. So I, for one, don't feel that it's inevitable that we're all doomed. You know, I feel that we can change things. I feel that we can start turning back the clock, start changing these events. And you can find hints of this, or very blatant hints of this, in other philosophies and religions too. In Christianity, in Islam and Sufism. So maybe we're all sitting around waiting for the world to end, and we're thinking that God is punishing us because, the world is just so wicked, he's going to pull the rug out from under us and blow this whole place to kingdom come, except for, those few chosen ones. But maybe sitting back and saying, you did this. You're doing this. And you can change this. And maybe he's saying that, my friends, is your choice. How far do you want to go down the Armageddon road? Interesting thoughts, ladies and gentlemen. And I hope this podcast gave you a little something to think about, or maybe some tools to start changing the way you react to what's happening in the world and in your environment, bringing greater peace into your life, not circling the drain of fear and panic with so many other people when these things start to happen. I'm a person who likes to think about solutions, and I hope after this podcast, you will be too. So as always, folks, I appreciate you listening. I hope you got something out of this show today. And until next time, this is Paul James Caden saying, stay safe out there, everybody. And I'll see you next time here on the Spirit Side.